In World War II, the largest volunteer army of the entire conflict was assembled. 2.5 million men who would fight and die across the globe, from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Burma. They fought for freedom, for democracy, and for an empire. But here's the paradox. While these soldiers were battling Axis forces, their own political leaders were prisoners of that same empire, jailed for demanding the very freedom the world was supposedly fighting for. This is the story of an army that fought for global liberty while being denied its own. In 1939, India was a powder keg. For decades, a powerful independence movement, led by the Indian National Congress, had been growing stronger. Figures like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru were mobilizing millions in non-violent resistance against the British Crown. But for Britain, India wasn't a nation on the brink of self-rule. It was the jewel in its imperial crown, a massive source of people, resources, and strategic power. At the start of the war, the British Indian Army was a professional force of just under 200,000 men, mostly used for internal security. No one imagined it would soon be called into a global war. But as war clouds gathered over Europe, two opposing visions for India, one of independence, the other of empire, were about to collide. When Britain declared war on Germany in September 1939, the Viceroy of India, Lord Linlithgow, plunged India into the war without consulting a single Indian leader. It was a blunt reminder of who was in charge. In protest, the leaders of the Indian National Congress resigned from their positions in provincial governments, and a deep political crisis began to brew. And yet, millions of Indian men answered the call to arms. The British Indian Army exploded from under 200,000 to over 2.5 million men by 1945, becoming the largest all-volunteer force in world history. So why did they join? For many, it wasn't about blind loyalty to the crown. In a land hit hard by poverty, the army offered a steady salary, food, and even the promise of land. For others, it was a sense of duty, or a pragmatic belief that if India helped Britain in the war, it would be the fastest route to independence. As the war intensified, the Indian Army became absolutely essential to the Allied effort. In the scorching deserts of North Africa, the 4th, 5th, and 10th Indian Divisions were critical in stopping Rommel's Afrika Korps at El Alamein. They fought with incredible bravery in Eritrea and Syria. Later, Indian divisions became the 3rd largest Allied force in the brutal Italian campaign, playing a key role in the grinding Battle of Monte Cassino. But while these soldiers were fighting to liberate Europe, the fight for their own liberation back home was being crushed. In August 1942, Gandhi launched the Quit India movement, a massive campaign of civil disobedience demanding an immediate end to British rule. The British response was swift and total. Within hours, Gandhi, Nehru, and nearly the entire leadership of the Indian National Congress were arrested and imprisoned without trial, where most would stay for the rest of the war. The empire was now fighting a war for freedom overseas, while locking up freedom fighters at home. By 1944, the war arrived on India's doorstep. The Japanese army, having conquered Burma, launched a full-scale invasion. It was here, on their own soil, that Indian soldiers made their most important stand. At the savage sieges of Imphal and Kohima, it was overwhelmingly Indian divisions that held the line, pushed back the invaders, and handed the Japanese army a devastating defeat. Yet this battle for India revealed another layer of the paradox. Fighting in a supportive role alongside the Japanese were soldiers of the Indian National Army, or INA. Led by the charismatic nationalist Subhas Chandra Bose, the INA was made up mostly of Indian prisoners of war. They believed that an alliance with the Axis powers was the only way to forcibly kick the British out of India. Indian soldiers were now fighting other Indian soldiers over the very meaning of freedom. The legacy of this army is complicated and still debated. To explore more forgotten histories of World War II, check out a documentary from our sponsor. And if you found this story compelling, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more hidden histories. When the war ended in 1945, the soldiers of the British Indian Army came home as heroes. Their courage had earned them global respect and 31 Victoria Crosses. They had helped save the world from tyranny at the cost of over 87,000 of their own lives. But they returned to a nation on a knife's edge. The British Empire, exhausted by war and unable to hold on to a colony that so fiercely demanded its freedom, was getting ready to leave. In 1947, the independence they had helped secure finally came, but it came at the horrific price of partition. Their victory was a tragic one, giving birth to two new nations, India and Pakistan, from the ashes of a paradoxical war.